Cloninger moves on in, and he scores!
Gonna learn today.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, John Gove's got me distracted right now, but anyways, I'm back on track. Welcome to the Pod Street Bullies. My name is Derek.
And I'm John. What's going on, everybody?
And I'd be remiss if I didn't say that the Pod Street Bullies is brought to you by none other than Philadelphia Sports Network. You can catch us on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, on Spreaker, iHeartRadio, and a million other things that I'm sure you'll find us. YouTube, that as well.
Pod Snatcher.
Yeah, just look us up. You'll find us.
I don't know if that's a thing.
If I don't sound conceited there, I don't know. But man, this is kind of bittersweet for us right now. Like, this Flyers 5 series is finally coming to an end tonight.
I'm okay with it.
I think I put more research into this than I ever did my entire college career, like, combined.
Oh yeah, hands down. But I'm kind of happy it's done. But I'd like to talk about like real hockey stuff. Like, this has been fun. I've really enjoyed this, but I'd like to talk about something that's a little bit more relevant now.
Yeah, I'd like the Flyers to give us something to talk about that's a little more relevant right now, too.
Right. I mean, it is the middle of August, and there's not a whole lot of hockey going on. But maybe sign somebody? That'd be cool.
That'd be nice. You know, I'd like a Konechny signing. I think that'll come first. Honestly, I think Provorov, it might be a while.
Right. I mean, we're going to dive deeper into that, I think, in a later episode, but I agree with you. I think Provorov is going to be more like a November deal-ish.
Yeah, that market's got to set itself, and it's not going to set itself until guys like McAvoy, Werenski start ponying up and putting their John Hancock down on that contract.
Right.
But regardless, we have our last installment of the Flyers 5 series, folks. The centers, the 5 greatest centers, Flyers centers of all time. And John,
this was tough. I feel like I say that every time, but this was tough.
This one, legit, like, they are all tough, let's be honest. But
right.
This one we knew, like, the 5 guys that we wanted.
Right.
But ranking them, I think this list was the hardest to rank the top 5.
Yeah, side note, Derek was in a straight-up panic about ranking these guys. He called me yesterday. John, I don't know what to do.
Yeah, like, I didn't sound smart enough talking to Mike last week, and I'm like, I'm panicking, dude. You're gonna need a new co-host. Like, this is bad. but
that's all right, dude. I'm actually thinking if I'm gonna stay on, you're gonna have to start paying me $40 million a year.
Relax there, Kevin Hayes.
I was thinking more of a Dak Prescott deal.
Oh, please, listen. I'm a Cowboys fan, and that's outrageous. Come on.
$40 million a year. What is he thinking?
Even 35, I'd still think he's overpaid. But
dude, he gets offered 30. I'll be like, yep.
Yeah. He did. He turned it down.
I know.
Reportedly.
He's an idiot.
Yeah, that's the. At what point, though, do you blame the agent? Because agents are the ones that are out looking for the most money, too, because they get commish.
Right, no, and I'm sure that he's blaming the agent because he looks like an idiot now. Like, nobody thinks he's a smart man.
No, that was a boneheaded move, to say it politely.
Right. But anyway.
We digress. We're going to get back to hockey because this is a hockey podcast. So, jumping right into this, we're going to go top 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Then we're going to go underrated. Then we're going to go busts. And then we're just going to go.
And then we're going to go, well, no, we got that other stuff going on. But
we got other stuff.
We're going to do that similar format to last week, right? We decided that you're going to rattle up your top 5, and I'm going to kind of piggyback off what you say.
Yeah, we can just kind of run through this top 5 that I've got right here, and then you say, okay, this is who I had, or this is where I had that guy.
Right, yeah.
Whatever you feel comfortable doing. And then if there's one, we actually talked about this. We have the same 5 players. Just we don't know where we have them ranked.
Right.
So 1 or 2 might come as a surprise. 1 or 2 may not. We'll see.
Right.
The only way to find out, let's get right into it.
Let's do it.
Number 5, I have Rod the Bod Brindamore, baby.
All right.
I had to put him on there after looking at his stats, after looking at his career, and I mean not just just his Flyers career, but like the rest of his career was still phenomenal. A lot of time with Carolina.
Right, he won a Stanley Cup with Carolina.
Yeah, and I mean, even as a coach this year with Carolina, look at what he did.
Right.
But with the Flyers, he had 601 points in 633 games, fourth most games out of all Flyers centers, and fifth most points out of all Flyers centers. Which, on the list that we're looking at right now, that's pretty impressive because we all know the names, and I'm not going to rattle them off right now because we're going to get to a few of them. But getting into specifics with goals and assists, he's fifth in both goals and assists. 235 goals, 366 assists. It doesn't touch the person who's ranked number one, but he also did this in about 8.5 seasons for the Flyers.
Yeah, I mean, and the one thing that really stands out with Rod Brind'Amour is he was an absolute workhorse. I mean, besides for all the intangibles, besides for all the points, he had all the intangibles. I mean, the guy played 484 straight games for the Flyers.
He's the Cal Ripken of the NHL.
It's unreal, dude.
It is, especially when you consider, like, look, who's played the most games right now in the NHL in a row? I couldn't tell you, but 484.
Wasn't it Cogliano for a while? Wasn't he like the Iron Man or something?
I think you're right.
I
think it was Cogliano.
I think I am too.
484. And
then he lost the streak because he got suspended for like performance enhancing drugs or something. Wasn't that? Or am I making that up?
I believe you're right. I'll have to double check that, but we will look into that.
Yeah.
But like John said, 484 games played total. He was inducted into the Flyers Hall of Fame in November of 2015. One thing, we talked about this earlier, I believe yesterday or on Tuesday, if I can remember correctly. In the 97 playoffs against Pittsburgh in that series, Brind'Amour had scored 2 shorthanded goals during the same power play, the penalty kill for the Flyers.
Crazy.
It's insane. And he was such a defensively sound center as well, which kind of just bolstered the argument to have him in the top 5 as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, to be honest, he's my number 4.
I can't blame you for putting him there.
Yeah, I just think like when it comes to like an all-around player, right? I mean, he just had everything that you look for in a hockey player. Like the guy never broke down, and sometimes you have those guys, but they're not really point producers. This guy could do it. I mean, in 2 shorthanded goals. I mean, that was a guy who was never satisfied. And to me, I just have to give him a lot of respect. So he's my number 4.
He even had 200 power play points. So 1/3 of his points came on the power play. So that just says a lot about, one, his usage because he was used on the power play, and 2, when you're up a man, and Brind'Amour's on the ice, you're probably going to get a point.
Right. I mean, he was a guy you could put in every situation.
Yeah, shutdown center, power play guy, even strength. It says, I'm sure he's got a few stats shorthanded, obviously, considering he scored 2 shorthanded goals in 1 power play, but a majority of goals came at even strength, assists as well. Still doesn't take away from the fact that he was just a complete player, and I'd be incredibly stupid if I left him off my top 5.
Oh, for sure, man. Yeah. All right, so who do you have it for? I mean, he was my 4th. Who do you have it for?
I was very reluctant to put this individual this low, but I had to account for the fact that he didn't play his entire career at center. Claude Giroux.
Claude Giroux. You know what? That's all right, man. Before you go any further, he's my 5th.
Yeah. And it makes sense. This one was the toughest one for me because I, at one point, had him up at 2. But
yeah,
you also talked me off a ledge once again because you have to almost discount these past 2 seasons where he's been playing on the left wing.
Right. I mean, and it's tough, too, because, yeah, he has played some games at center, but, like, you and me aren't going to go back and look at all the separate game logs to find out, what points were acquired when he was a center and what points were acquired when he was a left winger.
Exactly, and that's hard to track, and I don't even know if we'd be able to find that. But, with his argument as my number 4 center, your number 5, he's a 6-time All-Star, which in this day and age, in any day and age, really. It's pretty great. Fourth place in Hart voting in 2012. He lost out to Evgeny Malkin, Steven Stamkos, and King Henrik Lundqvist. And then he was third in 2014, losing out to Sidney Crosby and Ryan Getzlaf. And then the heartbreak heard around the world, 2018, he came in fourth place.
Oh, yeah.
That, I will scream this from a mountaintop until the day I die, that award should have went to Claude Giroux. Maybe I'm a homer.
Yep.
Maybe whatever. I don't care.
NHL doesn't like the Flyers.
Yeah, it's very evident by these couple lists that they've put out, you know. But
that's something I'll stand by too. It's insane.
Yeah,
man.
It still doesn't take away from the fact that I did not discount these past 2 seasons from total stats here, but he's second overall in games played with 820. He's second overall in scoring with 762 points. He's almost a point per game player and averaged 64 points per season up to this point.
Hey, pump the brakes, brother, man.
Yeah?
He's not... Oh, never mind. Never mind, second as far as centers.
Second as far as centers, yes. I clarified that with Brendan Moore. I should have clarified that with Giroux as well.
Well, it should need to be clarified. We're doing a centers episode. I'm just an idiot.
Yeah, well, you and me both, brother. But goals, he's fourth overall for centers, and he's second overall in assists. And looking at his stats, the only center above him is someone we're going to mention later on. Do you see Giroux catching him?
Let me look at the number again. 760.
Yeah, a lot of ground to make up.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. That'd be tough. I mean, considering that players tend to decline after 30.
He's trailing by 448 points.
Yeah, so he would have to have... I mean, he'd have to have a bunch of 100... He'd have to have, 100-point seasons, or have, 680-game seasons or something ridiculous.
Yeah,
that'd be tough.
It's tough. That's it's not something that someone in their 30s can do.
Right.
Without being somebody like, Jágr or Gretzky. But
right.
I don't think he'll catch him, but I do think that if we're going to talk just forwards overall, wingers and centers,
right.
I think Claude Giroux will go down as one of the best to ever play for the Flyers.
Well, listen, man, I mean, outside of just his numbers, this guy was the reason that this team wasn't worse than they were during our bad years. I mean, we were on a rebuild and we were still flirting with the playoffs because of Claude Giroux.
Very true. He kept the Flyers in so many games, and one of the main arguments I saw against Claude Giroux is, he doesn't show up in the playoffs. He doesn't, when we need him in the playoffs, he doesn't show up. He doesn't do his job. He's not a great captain. I want to delve into that just a little. Sure. I won't go into a great extent with it, but he's played in 69 playoff games to this date. Still more to come, I'm assuming. 65 points.
You said 69 games and 65 points?
Yes.
Okay.
In the 2010 Stanley Cup run, he had 21 points in 23 games, on par with his overall production.
Right.
Don't ever tell me that Claude Giroux can't perform in the playoffs.
This is just idiot fans. I mean,
I get people are disgruntled. Understand?
Right.
We all are to an extent as well, but that's a bad argument.
Well, and I think too, not necessarily the playoff performance, but going on the leadership. Last year was a mess for this team. And we couldn't really understand why. There were so many high hopes at the beginning of the year, and you just couldn't understand why. So then you start diving into, it must be the leadership. Claude Giroux must not be a good leader. And we don't really know. I mean, maybe he should be a little bit more vocal on the ice. Maybe we should see a little bit more passion from him. I don't know. I've seen him break his stick on a goalpost a few times.
I've seen that.
But I don't know. I think it's unfair to call this guy a poor captain just because the team hasn't done well. As good as we'd like anyway.
Of course. And that fits kind of with the line of succession. When everything's going wrong and nothing's going right. You look at the team as a whole. When you can't really pinpoint anything with the team, you look at the leadership. So is it just to say something like that and go off about the leadership of the team? Yeah, but not when your guy's putting up 65 points in 69 playoff games.
It's almost impossible for us to judge what a good leader is from the stands or our television. Because we're not in the locker room. We're not there for practices. We don't see what he's doing kind of behind the scenes. It's not like there's reports of Claude Giroux taking all the young players out on a hooker chase and snorting blow off things. It's just insane to me.
You're right. And I think, his biggest offense was grabbing that Ottawa cop's butt, twice. But who hasn't done that? Let's be honest.
I mean, I'm pretty sure that's Ottawa's motto. When you walk in, they have the sign that says, "Grab a cop's butt. Welcome to Ottawa."
Yeah, that's just a sign of respect from what I understand.
Right. But if you go to Ottawa and do that, don't use us as a reference for why you pinched anybody's butt, okay, people?
Yeah, you're on your own. We're not bailing you out of jail either. But I guess if there's nothing else we want to add to the Giroux argument here for number 4 for me, number 5 for you.
Well, I just want to keep talking about it for one more second because he was the wrench in this for me. He's what made ranking these centers so difficult because I kept going back and forth because, like you said, if we're talking about just like top players, he could be higher, challenging because you almost feel like you're not giving the guy enough credit by making him 4 or 5.
Yeah, and it's what it boils down to is the fact that this is rankings for centers. So if we're doing a top 5 of all time, or even I'd probably say top 10 at this point, I'd definitely put Giroux in that category. But for centers, not right now.
Yeah, so just a quick recap. Yours so far are 5, you've got Brind'Amour. 4, you have Giroux. 5, I have Brind'Amour. 5, I have Giroux. 4, I have Brind'Amour.
Yes.
So we're flippy-floppy.
That is correct. So,
all right,
we move to number 3.
Yup.
My number 3, and this is probably where I would have put Giroux, but I couldn't do it. It is not Reggie, goodness. I'm still thinking back to last week. Rick MacLeish.
Yeah, boy.
I'm assuming by the yeah, boy, you agree with me.
I do.
Oh,
I love Rick MacLeish.
I do like him. I did, like I always do, a ridiculous amount of research and still can't reach a definitive decision until the night before. But MacLeish really intrigued me. Just, if not for his overall stats across his career with the Flyers, for the fact that his playoff success was just outstanding.
Right, and I think the hair has to help too.
Yes, that man just had a slick head of hair.
It's just a great picture. I'm looking at it right now.
Oh yeah, if you could see it and we could put it on this somehow, like you guys would look at that and say, yeah, they're right.
Yeah, I wish I could rock that hairdo. Anyway, let's go talk about what he did on the ice.
Yeah, on the ice, Reggie MacLeish, Rick MacLeish. Goodness, I'll sort this out here. Rick MacLeish had 7 seasons with at least 30 goals. He had 4 seasons with at least 40 assists, and overall 6 seasons with 70 points or more.
Can I piggyback off you really quick for a second?
You may.
So his first year with the Flyers, age 21, 6 points in 26 games.
Yep.
Second year, age 22, right? 17 games played, 3 points. It ain't looking that well. It ain't looking that good for our boy Rick. Third year, 78 games, 50 and 50. He goes from scoring 9 points his first 2 years to scoring 100 his third year.
Did they test for performance-enhancing drugs back then?
He must have been taking some sort of like horse intestine or something.
Do you say intestine?
Yeah.
What? Where is that coming from?
Well, I was originally going to go with a different body part, but then realized, we're trying to keep it PG here, so I went with the intestine.
I'm trying not to laugh through this because Every day that we put one of these shows out, I listen and I'm like, I hate the fact that I laugh at everything because it just sounds stupid when you hear yourself laugh. But this is why
I'm a funny guy.
But yeah, and this is your fault, so I blame you once again. But
Right. So anyway, after the horse intestine infused third year, he just became a really good player.
yeah, I mean, evidenced by the 2 Stanley Cups that he won, and if it weren't for Bernie Parent, he'd have probably had 2 Conn Smythes to add to that trophy case as well.
Yep.
Yeah. Led all scorers in the 74 playoffs with 22 points. Led all scorers again the very next year. And lost both times. Lost out to Bernie Parent for the Conn Smythe, which, that's fair. Bernie Parent, as John eloquently puts every time we discuss his name, only the Lord saves more.
Still looking for that shirt, people. Come on now.
Yeah, you know our sizes.
Right. Do they? Large.
Large, yes. We are large men.
Isn't it crazy he never won an award?
It blows my mind, especially considering the fact that you pointed out he had a 50-50 year. Like, that's it's insane.
It just goes to show you how talented, this league is.
It really does. And I wish I could have pulled up who won the Hart Trophy that year. It would have been easier to make the case for McLeish here, but I didn't.
Right. Well, you keep talking. I'm going to look it up.
Yeah, so January 3rd, he was born, which is one day after the day that I was born, but obviously many years before I was born. So I like him already. But he was acquired from Boston. It was a 3-way trade with Toronto where the Philadelphia Flyers actually gave up Bernie Parent to Toronto, and they got McLeish and Danny Shack. Here we go.
I'm gonna save who won the Hart Memorial Trophy until we get there.
I think I know. But
Yep.
yeah, I think I know.
Just keep talking.
Okay, so over the course of 12 years with the Flyers, 741 games, is 3rd overall with the team for centers, 2nd overall in goals, 3rd overall in assists, and 3rd overall in scoring. And obviously this isn't, the most sought-after stat, but he was a plus 183.
Yep, I'm not going to repeat it, but you know how I feel when it's that high.
Yep, better than being lower.
Yep, for sure.
Oh, yeah. But, I mean...
For sure.
I'm trying to think here. I thought I had some stuff written down, but I didn't. I think we made our point pretty clear when it comes to Rick McLeish here.
Yeah, I mean, the crazy thing about Rick McLeish, right, is it's like if you put him in any other era, I think you would remember his name a lot more. But because of the team that he was on and all the great people, he kind of gets lost. But then again, if he wasn't with that group of people, he probably wouldn't have been a Stanley Cup champion.
You're right. And the stat that I said that I hadn't written down, I just found out that I did.
Mm-hmm.
Playoff points, 105, good for 2nd for centers and 4th overall on the Flyers.
105 points, and how many playoff games? Do you have that or no?
Playoff games, McLeish played in 108.
Wow.
Yes, he was over a point. He was over a point per game in the playoffs, better than who number 1 was. And he also had more goals. He was the number 1 playoff goal scorer for the Flyers centers with 53.
I wonder if somebody in the 70s was on typewriter Twitter saying that he stunk in the playoffs.
Probably. That's the motivation that probably lit a fire up under him, got him going.
Right. Yeah, typewriter Twitter is a little bit harder, though, because, it's hard for everybody else to see it. You have to type it out, and then you got to go to one of those stores that has one of the only copy machines in the state, and then you got to make a bunch of copies and put it in everybody's mailbox. It's not as effective.
Yeah, and if you like something, you got to I don't even know what they did back then if you liked their
I'll tell you exactly what they did. They stepped right out the front door and they went, I like this tweet.
Now, what'd they do for retweets?
They just double tapped a piece of paper.
I like that.
Yeah, nobody else saw it, but...
It's the symbolism of it.
Right. I mean, it was the beginning of Twitter. You got to remember that they had to get all this ironed out.
You're like our Twitter historian.
Where are we going with this?
We're going on to our number 2 best center of all time for the Flyers.
Oh, right. Good.
Now, McLeish was your number 3.
Yep.
Your number 2, I'm assuming, is probably the same as mine.
If it's not the same, I'm leaving.
Okay. My number 2 center of all time
Mm-hmm.
Adam Oates.
Shut up.
Vinny LeCavalier.
Yeah. All right. Will you just say it already?
None other than Eric Lindros.
I had Bobby Clark.
I will drive to your house and set it on fire.
Well, that would be very nice. I have
You're
other
right.
people who live here.
Well, they'll get a warning. Don't worry.
Okay. All right. Anyway, yes, Eric Lindros.
Yes, I'm not going to lie to you. I have a whole page of notes here, and I'm not going to go through it all. It's just for my knowledge. His whole career was just something out of, I don't even know.
His short career. That's the crazy part about it all.
It's the unfortunate part as well.
Well, oh yeah, of course. But I mean, he essentially had 8 productive seasons.
Yeah, and most of them came with the Flyers, thankfully.
Right. I mean, he fell off by age 26. Like, that's when people start to hit their prime.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm 28 right now, and I feel like I'm in my prime.
Oh, I'm past my prime.
I mean, when it comes to certain things, other things, I'm definitely past my prime. But
Yeah. Anyway, Eric Lindros.
yes, Eric Lindros, first overall pick the year that I was born, 1991. Quebec Nordiques drafted him, and he threw a fit, didn't want to play for him. The very next year at the draft, they traded him. It was that part of that, whole conundrum with the Rangers submitting an offer and the Flyers. Flyers were awarded the trade and had to throw in Chris Simon and a 1994 first rounder as well, on top of Forsberg, Ricci, Kerry Huffman, Steve Duchesne, Ron Hextall, and 2 other first round picks, plus $15 million.
I know.
That's a
wild
steep price.
Yeah, it is. Do you hate people like that? The ones that are like, I'm not playing here.
I do.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I love what Eric Lindros did for the Flyers, but there's always going to be a part of me that just has a little bit of disrespect for that. I can't help it. It's the same thing with John Elway.
Oh, yeah. Like, I'm not playing there. And, like, Eli
Right.
Manning with the Chargers as well.
Right.
You know?
Like, you know what? You were just drafted first overall into the best league of the sport you're playing. Shut up and go play there.
Yeah, you got 3 years of an entry-level contract. Once those 3 years are up, go wherever you want to go.
Right. That
But-
being said, I do love Eric Lindros and what he did for the Flyers, so nobody yell at me. I just think that part sucks.
Yeah, there's really not another player I can think of that was just as dominant as Eric Lindros was.
Right.
486 games, which doesn't rank in the top 5, but who cares? He's 4th overall in scoring for the Senators with 659 points in that span, and he had a 17.6% shot percentage. Pretty.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, almost 1 out of every almost 5 shots went in the net for him, which is pretty nifty.
Yep.
57 points in 50 playoff games. The guy was just there, and we've seen it a lot on Twitter with the people arguing, because there's been that argument being thrown around: who's better, Giroux, Lindros, Clark, da 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 da. Like,
Right.
a lot of people are saying that they grew up watching Lindros. I was young; it was hard for me to really appreciate his game at that time.
Yeah, same with me.
But he was such a physically commanding individual when he was on that ice. Him, Leclerc, Renberg, part of the Legion of Doom line.
Yep.
People feared that line. Like, people were legitimately scared, because if you were on the puck and they were coming at you, you're in trouble.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, just Lindros himself, 6'4", 240. Is that what he was? Something along those lines?
Yeah, and
I'm
guys
looking
like
at
that now are
Hockey
goons.
Reference. Right, I'm looking at hockey reference. I mean, they wouldn't have his weight that he weighs now, right? Like,
No, but
he's
he-
not 200 feet. I
he-
mean, I've seen a few pictures. He might still be 240.
He looks a little swollen, I guess.
Yeah, a little swole.
Yeah, he's pretty big now. But, I mean,
Yeah.
he's still big when he played. The guy was a hoss.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with him too, Derek, is like it's always tough when you play like that what if factor, right? But he's somebody that I have no problem playing the what if game with, because
He's the biggest what
imagine,
if.
right? Imagine if this guy stayed healthy and he didn't have those concussion problems. I mean, he probably would have topped this list.
Oh, in my opinion, no question. I think he would have.
Yeah.
And it's no slight on who we have at number 1, but that's just how
Right.
dominant Eric Lindros was when he was on top of his game.
Right. Yeah.
You know, to really build off of that too, he was the fourth fastest player to 300 points in the NHL, only behind Wayne Gretzky, Mario Lemieux, and Peter Stastny. He was the fourth fastest player to 400 points as well, behind those same three.
Yep.
Fifth fastest to 500 behind Gretzky, Lemieux, Stastny, and Mike Bossy. And then the sixth fastest to 600 points behind Gretzky, Lemieux, Stastny, Bossy, and Yari Curry. That's
good company.
It took him 429 games to get to 600 points.
Yep.
That's
pretty good.
That's dominance. Utter dominance.
Yeah. Yo, he finished his career in Dallas?
He did. It was not the greatest way to send somebody like him off, but...
No, not at all. But, yeah, it's like one of those... You ever see those articles? It's like, can you believe they played there?
Yeah.
Yep. That one is one for me. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. He was a six-time All-Star. He was the last Flyer to win an individual award, and he won the Hart Trophy in '95.
Really?
Yeah. That season, he also won the Lester B. Peterson Award, which we talked about last show with Mike. It's now the Ted Lindsay Award for the NHL Players Association's Player of the Year. The guy he was, and I've said it 30 times already, he was just so dominant. You know, he was, I guess, if you're going to think of a comparable right now, I almost would compare him to a Sidney Crosby, but more physical, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair enough.
Like
not as much whining and complaining.
Oh, absolutely. You know, that's Crosby's trademark, really.
Right.
But,
I mean, Lindros would handle his own business, not have somebody else take care of it for him.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, we were talking about how he came into the league and his gripe with the Quebec Nordiques. I do have a bit of a gripe with him with how he handled most of his time, especially towards the end with the Flyers.
Right.
The training staff stuff I get. I understand. He suffered a lot of concussions and some of them not diagnosed correctly. One time it could have ended his life.
Right, definitely.
If it hadn't have been for Keith Jones finding him in that bathtub.
Right.
But he also, when he became an RFA after the 99-2000 season, he refused to sign an offer from Philadelphia because that offer had a minor league provision in it, and he wasn't cleared to play at this point because he had already suffered concussions, and then a setback during rehab. He had another concussion during rehab, which I don't know how that happens, but it did.
Right.
And then, so he sat out even after he was cleared, and Philly didn't want to acquiesce to his preferred trade destination, which was Toronto. So they let him sit out that season and finally traded him to New York, the Rangers, for Jan Havlik, Kim Janssen, Pavel Brendel, and a third-round pick, which ended up being Stefan Ruzicka.
I mean, yeah, he was always a bit of a prima donna.
Yeah, as evidenced by, the first day in the NHL.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I don't love that either. I like the Ovechkins of the world. They just go out and do their thing and chug beer out of the Stanley Cup.
God, I envy that man immensely.
But yeah, I mean, I agree with you. You can't ignore how great of a player was, but unfortunately, all that extra stuff kind of puts a little asterisk for me, at least, like when I talk about him.
It does. But all personal stuff aside, Lindros was one of the best centers the Flyers ever had. And if we're going to play that what-if game again, could have been one of the best centers to ever play the game.
For shizzle.
Yeah. So, we finally get to our unanimous number one, which, folks, you listening in the car right now, on the train, wherever you're at, you know.
Yeah.
Do you want to do the honors, John?
Bobby Clarke.
Yes, sir.
Bobby Clarke, do. Bobby Clarke, do.
That was my head slamming on the desk.
Listen, I've heard that song about 17 times today, and when I was going over my list, I was like, I'm singing Bobby Clarke, do. And I did.
Thanks for the heads up. I appreciate that. But yes, it is Bobby Clarke. Do. He is our unanimous number one, which when you look at his career, what he's done, the points that he put up, just his... I don't even know what to say. I mean...
Right. I mean, yeah, I can do a little bit. I can do this. I can be Derek.
I took most of these. You take it.
Well, I'm not going to give you numbers, but I'll go first in points, first in assists, first in games played, fourth in goals, 32 shorthanded goals, 2-time Stanley Cup champion, and he was the captain. 3-time Hart Memorial Trophy winner, 4-time All-Star, Masterson Trophy, Selke winner, and Hall of Famer. What else do you need?
We need him on the team right now.
Right. He wasn't a great what's that word when you like general manager type thing. Yeah. Wasn't there a lot of problems with him?
Yeah, his problems stemmed a lot with Lindros too. So they tied in together as well. But overall, if we're looking at playing career, just that, there's no other person that deserves to be at the number one spot aside from Bobby Clarke.
No,
he has franchise records in assists, points, playoff assists, and playoff points. He actually, his first year in the league, he lost out on the Calder Trophy to Tony Esposito, who came in first, Bill Fairbairn, and Keith Magnuson. Which, looking back on it now, Tony Esposito, I get it, but the other two, man, they screwed that one up. But anyways, they drafted him in the second round too, which amazes me because we talked a little bit about this last week with our busts, because in the first round they drafted... Who did they draft in the first round? It was...
Was that
Bob Courier.
Yeah, yep.
Yep, he was one of my busts last week. I think it was my number one bust, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so.
But Jerry Melnick was the one that convinced Bud Poyle, the GM of the Flyers at the time, to draft Clarke in the second round because he was still on the board. Detroit and Montreal both immediately contacted Philadelphia with offers, and Montreal's offer was said to be an offer that the, quote, Flyers management could hardly refuse, end quote.
Man, imagine if they didn't refuse it.
I'm surely glad that they did refuse it, because we wouldn't have 2 Stanley Cups, I'm pretty sure.
Right. I mean, that's the coolest thing about Bobby Clarke. He was an awesome player, but no one expected him to even play. Like, they thought that his diabetes problems back then were going to prevent him from playing.
Diabetes.
Jesus.
Sorry. But yeah, if it weren't for his coach taking him to that, I can't remember the name of the camp that he took him to, but it really put his name on the radar. It was up in Minnesota, I believe. And that put his name on the radar for a lot of different NHL teams, but his diabetes really raised a bunch of red flags for a lot of the franchises involved in that draft. And if it weren't for, like I said, Jerry Melnick, Clarke wouldn't have been a Flyer.
I know.
And
thanks, Jerry.
Yes, Jerry. If you're listening, thank you. We greatly appreciate that.
Is Jerry still alive?
I don't know.
All right. Well, if you are and you're listening, thanks, Jerry.
And if you're not and you still are listening somehow, thanks.
All right.
But to build off that too,
this is getting off the rails.
It is to kind of regather here. He had 9 50-assist seasons. He had 4 30-goal seasons and 3 100-point seasons.
Awesome.
Right? What other word is there to describe that?
Awesome.
Oh, I love The Miz. I'm a dork when it comes to wrestling. But yeah, regardless, we're not going off the rails
Bobby
again.
Clarke.
Yeah, so that's our top 5, folks. With John's top 5, we have number 5, Claude Giroux. Number 4, Rod Brind'Amour. 3, Rick McLeish. 2, Eric Lindros. And 1, Bobby Clarke. With me, all it is just Giroux and Brind'Amour flip-flopped, and then the top 3 remains the same. Now, I figured we would go... Do you want to go busts first, because we can end on a high note with the underrated?
Sure.
Let's do that. So, the busts, who do you have at number 3?
Number 3, I have Glenn Seabrook. He was selected 21st overall in 1985. Unfortunately, I mean, he was a bust, but it was because of injuries. They really ended his career at the age of 21. Unfortunately, in that same draft, the Flyers missed out on Joe Nieuwendyk with the 27th overall pick and Mike Richter with the 28th overall pick.
That's rough.
Yeah.
That is very rough.
But, I mean, again, I'm sorry, Glenn, that I'm calling you a bust. I know it wasn't your fault you got injured, but it kind of stinks when you draft somebody in the first round and it, is over by the age of 21.
Of course. The disappointment factor in it is really the biggest key to it. It's not necessarily he was a bust, but it was disappointing how his career unfolded.
Yep.
Yeah. My number 3, I have Adam Oates.
Okay.
At the time, Philadelphia traded a first, second, and third round pick in the 2002 draft, and Maxime Ouellet.
But he was a bust in his own.
He was.
Right.
And with those picks, Washington selected Martin Wagner, Maxime Daigneault, and Derek Kristanovich, which Wagner he never made the NHL. Daigneault was a career AHLer at best, and Kristanovich was a career ECHLer. So, in hindsight, this wasn't a terrible trade, and that's why I have him at 3. But nowadays, I mean, a first, second, and third round pick, it's for 10 points in 14 games during the regular season, 2 points in 5 playoff games, and then he walked during free agency.
Right, yeah. I mean, it's unheard of now.
Yeah, so that's why I have him at number 3 at least. Number 2.
All right.
Would you like to take
number
this
2.
one?
Sure. I have Larry Wright.
Interesting.
So, the Flyers drafted Wright 8th overall in 1971. He played 40 games with the Flyers from 1972 until the 75-76 season and only scored 1 goal and 2 assists. It makes it even a bigger bust when you think about who they missed out on. 2 Hall of Famers, Terry O'Reilly, he went 14th overall, and Larry Robinson, who went 20th overall.
See, I like the way you went with this, looking at who they could have had instead.
Yeah, well, that was Mike, what he did last week. Kind of inspired me. Of course,
I like
it's the last one of these, but
I'm gonna give you a nickname. Are you ready for this?
Sure.
We're gonna call you Johnny Heat Maps.
I'm gonna find you and burn your house down. Don't you ever compare me to that fart nugget again.
Fart nugget, good God. my number 2. If we're gonna move on from this, which I like the way you went because that's typically how I would go too.
Right.
But I couldn't leave this guy off the list.
Okay.
Vinny Lecavalier.
Oh, he's my number 1.
Ooh. Well,
yep.
He, for me, and it's tough because he was switched over to the left wing.
Mm-hmm.
But when he joined the Flyers and he signed that ridiculous 5-year, $22.5 million deal, he was a center.
Yep.
And he just, after they moved him to the left wing, he was quoted in an interview with somebody saying, I'm paraphrasing here, obviously, but he was not good at left wing, and he knew.
Right.
And he played 133 games for the Flyers, scored 58 points, and he was on the decline. We all knew that. But,
right.
Many of us thought that he'd be able to contribute and at a much higher level than he did. And Hextall was reluctant to really deal him along with Luke Schenn and get rid of him.
Right. I mean, this is an interesting one because, he's a bust, but this is the Flyers' brass fault. They should have never signed this guy to a 5-year deal.
100%.
Now, also, I have to add that Vinny Lecavalier is one of my favorite non-Flyers of all time.
I agree.
So, when he came to the team, I was pumped. I even had a jersey with Lecavalier's name on the back. I was so excited because I was a big fan of his. Unfortunately, just didn't work.
Yeah, I always had and still do have an immense amount of respect for that man and what he
Yep.
accomplished in Tampa Bay.
Yep.
Ever since they ousted the Flyers in the Eastern Conference Finals, that was I fell in love with LeCavalier when that happened,
Yep.
and I even rooted for Tampa Bay that year. But
It's crazy. I'm sorry, we're gonna go on a little bit of a tailspin here for a quick second.
oh, you're good.
When he was drafted, I believe it was either Tampa Bay, probably Tampa Bay's owner, said that he was going to be the Michael Jordan of hockey.
Oh, lofty
and-
comparison.
Yeah, and I mean, he never became that, obviously, but I mean, he was a great player for the Lightning. But it was insane to see such high expectations that were for him.
You could say like a Larry Bird,
Yeah,
But, and he's your number one. We covered
he was
that.
my number one.
My
Yep.
number one, we're going to backtrack for a second here. I actually put Glenn Seabrook, and it's because of the disappointment factor.
Right.
Seabrook, he was drafted 21st overall in 85, only played 19 games, and with the injury that he had, he crashed into a goalpost, severely injured his shoulder. 21 years old, man. That's,
Yeah, I mean, essentially, think about it. Like everything you've been working towards, and then boom, you have to come up with something different for the rest of your life, essentially.
Yeah. He actually he sued Team Doctors for improperly rushing his rehab process and caused permanent damage to his left arm. And in 1995, he was awarded a $5.5 million settlement.
Wow.
Yeah. And he played 2 seasons around, not full seasons, but seasons in the AHL when Hershey was the affiliate with the Flyers. He was really good. He had 126 points in 124 games, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, so, I mean, he was great, and he was 21. He was going to develop. He was going to be a solid contributor at the NHL level, and it all just came crashing down into the goalpost.
Yep.
Yeah, that was
like poetic doom.
Yeah,
right
that was
there.
I apologize for that one, sincerely.
All right.
Bad rhetoric there.
But those were good busts. I mean, the only one that you didn't have that I had was Larry Wright.
Yeah, and that's who I had with Adam Oates.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, so
All
the
right.
underrated section here.
Yep.
Number 3.
This was an interesting list for me.
I know. This one was tough for me to put together as well.
Yep.
I had
All right,
Mike
do you wanna
Richards.
start?
Yeah, I'm going to start because I already said it. But
Please tell me. Wait, say it again because I think we have the same guy at 3.
Mike Richards.
Yeah.
Oh, jackpot.
Look at that.
The guy just, I mean, my main criteria for this was the fact that he was just incredible during his 2010 Stanley Cup run with the Flyers. Captain of the team. He had, let's see here, in that Stanley Cup run, 23 games, 23 points. And that same year, I believe it was the same year, it was the year of The Shift. You remember that.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, one of my first articles I ever wrote was comparing that shift to Giroux's shift against the Penguins in the playoffs.
All right.
And it was, I could not believe it. Like, watching that live, I was jumping out of my seat.
It's one of the craziest, videos, even just watching it today.
Oh, yeah. Like, someone should dub that over with the Titanic music. But, 63 playoff games overall with the Flyers, 50 points. And then in 453 games, he had 349 points.
Yep.
He was second in Selke voting during the 2009 trophy season.
Oh, wow.
Lost out to Pavel Datsyuk.
Hey, well, there you go.
He's got an NHL record as well.
Does he?
Most 5-on-3 shorthanded goals.
Really?
3 of them. It's not much, but considering it's a 5-on-3.
5-on-3. Yeah, no one's ever trying to score on a 5-on-3.
That's a task
except
right
for
there.
Mike Richards.
Yeah, ballsy, baby.
Yeah. You know what made him underrated for me?
What is it?
I think that if you go up to a Flyer fan right now and you go, quick, Mike Richards, they're just going to be like, bad contract that the Flyers traded, and they got Wayne Simmons and Braden Shen, so they think about like the trade and what we got and kind of sparked this whole youth movement, right?
Oh, yeah.
Where we kind of almost forget just how great he was with the Flyers.
It's very true.
And then, I mean, it ends up working out. Yes, he won a Stanley Cup with the Kings, but he wasn't much of an offensive contributor, really, on the Kings. I mean, his highest was 44 points the next season.
Yeah, he was typically a second or third line center for those guys.
Right.
Which you're tasked with a lot of defensive zone draws. You're tasked with being a defensive-minded center, which, as evident by his second place in Selke voting in 2009, he was.
Right. I mean, and that contract was just dumb.
Oh, 12 years.
Right. Him and the Carter contract. That's just a conversation for a different time.
But getting rid of him got Brizgalov, so it all worked out, right?
Oh yeah. Worked out great.
So we're unanimous with number 3. Number 2, who do you have?
Sean Couturier.
Oh, I love it. I love that.
Yeah, I mean, maybe not in Flyerland. Maybe not when we're talking about Flyer fans, but I think when you're talking about the NHL as a whole, this guy is incredibly underrated.
Criminally.
I mean, you just don't realize that what he produces offensively, he matches defensively. The guy is just a phenomenal two-way player that doesn't get the credit that he deserves. And I'm not even going to bother going into numbers because, I mean, we're all familiar with it. Yeah, but the guy just doesn't get the respect he deserves from a NHL holistic standpoint, in my opinion. So I felt pretty good putting him at 2.
I believe it was as a rookie, and I could be wrong here, so correct me if I am. But he shut down Malkin and his line in the playoffs that year.
Yep, I'm pretty sure he was a rookie too.
Yeah, think of that. Think you're a rookie, 20 years old, 21, 22 maybe, and your coach says, hey, go out on the ice and shut down one of the best centers in the game right now. I'm pooping my pants.
Oh, yeah.
But Couturier was up for it, and he did it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Who was your 2?
My number 2, Ken Linseman. Which this, much with like last week, we talked about how there were just names we left off the list that deserve to be mentioned. Ken Linseman's one of those guys because he had 257 points in 269 games, which wasn't enough to really put him on the charts with the top 10. But he was just, I mean, that's dominating. Like that's a dominant game. 53 points in 41 playoff games. A lot of them were assists, which I should mention. But that he was a playmaking center, and even on his way out, he was traded with Greg Adams for Mark Howe. So he helped us on his way out. Like I think we mentioned 2 episodes ago with a couple trades.
Right. Yeah. No, that works, man.
Yeah. That's all I've got to say about that.
I mean, my number 1 will be brief with because we've actually already touched on him. Rick McLeish.
Ooh.
I think that because of the other players on the team, especially Bobby Clarke, he was kind of overshadowed. So when we think of like the great players on that team, I think maybe his name gets left out sometimes.
Yeah.
So he's one of the best Flyers ever, but at the same time, I don't think we're always giving him the most credit. So I felt like putting him on the old number 1 for the underrateds.
Kudos to you. I like that thought process.
Well, thank you.
I have Dave Poulin as my number 1.
Okay.
Dave Poulin played in 467 games and put up 394 points, with 233 of them being assists, 161 goals. In 1987, Dave Poulin won the Selke Award.
Okay.
He finished 4th in Calder voting during his rookie season in 84. He was the one that succeeded Bobby Clarke as the captain in 84 and 85. And for 3 years, I believe, he played on a line with Tim Kerr and Brian Propp.
Nice.
That definitely aided in his scoring there.
Sure.
He was inducted into the Flyers Hall of Fame in 2004. Poulin, much like you said with McLeish, doesn't get the respect that he deserves, in my opinion. So here I am, screaming his name from the mountaintop that is Pod Street Bullies.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. Now, I also wanted to bring one more person up.
Sure.
Danny Briere.
Yeah. I mean,
I wouldn't say underrated, but he needs to be recognized. Let's be honest.
Oh, yeah.
He was an absolute machine in the playoffs. And I don't have numbers. I'm not going to go in depth about it. I just wanted to throw his name out there because Danny Briere deserves a lot of credit for his time with the Philadelphia Flyers.
I agree 100%.
Perfect. Then, as long as we're in agreement here, we're going to move on to our next segment.
What the?
Our Wait What segment, which for this week, I'm vaguely aware of what John's going to say, but I also wrote down mine in the Google Doc, and we're going to go ahead with this because, folks, it's a doozy.
Are you going to say it?
Yeah, I'm getting to it. I'm turning my page. So when I was doing my research, I was looking at other lists that people had written down, top 5 centers, top 10, whatever it may be, just to kind of see if there was any interesting little tidbits of information in those that I could use to bolster my argument. I came across one article that ranked the top 5 centers of all time for the Flyers. Now, this was written back in May of 2013, so it's a bit dated, and it was featured on Bleacher Report, which our work has been featured on Bleacher Report as well, but this was an actual author of Bleacher Report. Number 5, Murray Craven. And I'm going to rip this apart name by name here. So, Murray Craven isn't listed as a center. He's listed as a left winger. So, way to go, pal. You screwed it up from the get-go. Which I forgot to mention, honorable mention was Jeremy Roenick, which, okay, sure.
Yeah, all right.
Number 4, Dave Poulin.
Okay.
Not bad. I can, see it, but I don't agree with it. Number 3, Mike Richards.
Jesus.
This was before Claude Giroux emerged.
Okay, but still, 4 of the guys on our list.
Yeah. No, exactly. You're right. Number 2, Eric Lindros, and number 1, Bobby Clark. Number 1 and 2, okay.
Right.
Good job. You got a 40% on this one, which is still failing, you moron.
That's pretty bad.
But Mike Richards at 3, come on. The guy didn't mention Rick McLeish. Didn't even mention Rod Brindamore. And the guy, who was I pushing around? We talked about it. I'm looking at my notes and I can't quite come up with it. But there was another guy I was going to put there. No mention of Danny Briere. And, I wouldn't expect Sean Couturier because obviously very early. Even a guy like Mel Bridgman, or Pelle Eklund, we didn't even mention him. But, he had great stats.
Right. Well, the fact of the matter is that McLeish's career was far done before 2013. There's no reason he shouldn't be on that list. I mean, Rod Brindamore should be on the list. To have Mike Richards at 3, that's stupid.
It's egregious, and I'm even going to mention his name because I don't care. Michael Pistolio. You're a dunce.
Right.
Sorry.
Well,
not sorry.
That was like 6 years ago, so maybe you're not a dunce anymore.
You're still a dunce.
All
Go
right.
on with yours.
Well, mine is the Kevin Hayes thing.
Now, here's the thing. I tweeted that out. We're not going to talk about this, but I'll grant an exception.
You tweeted out we weren't going to talk about this?
I did, but whatever.
But why aren't we not going to talk about it?
I don't know. Everybody overpays in free agency. That's my opinion on it. Who gives a crap?
No, I know. I just thought that this was kind of interesting. I think this is kind of... First of all, if you don't know what we're talking about, apparently Frank Saravelli said on the Snow the Goalie podcast that Kevin Hayes told somebody that he was only going to sign with the Flyers if they overpaid him. Right? In a nutshell, that's essentially what it is. It's just a really crappy thing to come out because already this guy, we're looking at it and going, wow, we overpaid for this guy. He never wanted to be here in the first place, and now this comes out. It's just a real crappy way to start your first season with a team you're going to be a part of for 7 years. 7 years, yeah? That's what. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know how true it is, and I try to stay away from the whole hearsay thing, but there's nothing else really big going on in hockey right now. Hopefully he can come out and deny it. That'd be nice.
It would be, but let's be honest. I think Hayes just has a grasp on reality because he probably understands that any team that wanted to sign him was going to have to overpay because, in most circles, he was the number 2 center available in free agency. So call it a grasp on reality on Kevin Hayes' part. Call it him just, I don't even know what else to call it, but I get it. I understand his thought process when saying that.
Yeah, and I do want to kind of speak to fans. Like, take this with a very, very fine grain of salt. Don't make this a reason to hate this guy. I mean, who knows if he even really said it. Something could have been taken out of context.
Yeah.
And he was talking with a buddy.
Yeah, we say a lot of stuff to our friends that not always holds true.
Exactly. So, I don't know. I just had to bring that up a little bit, even though, Derek, you didn't tell me we weren't going to talk about it.
No, but I figured that you have access to our, Twitter account. You could see that, but regardless.
I've just been chasing around my wild 2-year-old the past few days. I haven't got to see that one, I guess.
Yeah, hey, I understand, dude. I get it.
All right. Anyways,
we're going to move to your favorite part of this show here, the Twitter questions. Folks, I'm going to be frank here for a second. Again.
Oh, don't even stop with the Frank joke.
All right, I'm going to be brutally honest then. We're not getting enough questions, and you folks are slacking, so we want more.
People are on vacation, Derek.
I don't care. I was on vacation, and I did this podcast from the Outer Banks.
Well, listen, there's not a whole lot to talk about. I mean, I'm looking at these questions now, and 3 or 4 of them have to do with the same player.
Listen, there's a couple good ones, though.
Yeah. No, it'll get interesting. Let's get right to it, dude.
Let's do it. Chadley asks, will Giroux retire from hockey in a Flyers sweater? Yes.
So you're just gonna go yes?
I'm gonna go yes, but I'll explain it here after you give your answer.
I mean, yes, but if for some reason the Flyers fail miserably this year, maybe not.
Here's my reasoning behind this. Okay. How many times in pro sports have you seen players that have been traded by the team that they had the most success with sign a quote-unquote one-day contract just so that they can retire?
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Damn.
That's the kind of caveat right there.
Did they do that in the NHL, though?
I believe so. I mean, Emmitt Smith did it with the Cowboys. And,
yeah, but that's not hockey,
but
dope.
It's sports. And you know what? Sports.
Right.
I have a hard time thinking Claude Giroux is not going to retire officially as a Flyer.
All right, but do you think he's going to play every game of his career as a Flyer?
I do.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to think so. But if this team continues to underperform, he's going to be the scapegoat. He has to be.
He doesn't necessarily have to be, but he will be. You're right in that regard.
Right.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah. So I think he will. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I do too. I would just like to put the butt in there. I'm about throwing a butt in there.
Kinky. Anyways, the next question comes from Mr. Schmuck Fletcher. And Schmuck here asks, we know Haig is the worst defenseman on our roster, but should he really be getting all the hate that he has been getting? He's played 2 full seasons and produced 20 points. Yes, his defending has been suspect. Doesn't he deserve a shot with a real coach, and can he improve?
Can I take this to start?
Yes, you can.
For some reason, we always need to pick a defenseman to hate. So it's like, once Andrew McDonald left, we needed to make Robert Haig the worst defenseman. You know what? He's not the best defenseman in the NHL. He's not the best defenseman on the team. He's not even top 4, top 5. But he's not horrible. I think we need to give this poor guy a break. He's going to probably be the 7th defenseman on the team. That's a great role for him.
This is so remnant of the Brandon Manning situation.
Well, yeah, we just need to find somebody. It's kind of pathetic.
It is. There's always got to be a scapegoat on the blue line. It has to be on the blue line. It's never, well, Voracek's not shooting enough, or
right.
That's obviously a different argument. People have
right.
made that argument, but someone on the blue line is always the scapegoat, and Haig has been that scapegoat and will continue to be now that McDonald is gone. I don't get it because, one, he's still young. There's
right.
room to improve, I believe. No, but his metrics. Shut up.
Right.
Anyways, and two, his contract he's barely making over $1 million.
Right. I mean, who cares if he stinks at this point?
Exactly. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. We've got a guy like Sam Morin waiting in the wings making less than $1 million who could probably plug that hole.
I hate this. It's like, not every player on the team is going to be a stud. That's just the reality of it.
Not everybody's going to have a Corsi of 60 or, shots against that went in the net against 27-year-olds on a Thursday. It's not going to be above 50%. Whatever. I don't care. He doesn't have to jump out off the fancy stats page at me. He's got a job to do, and if he does it well enough, comparable to what his contract says, I'm okay with it.
Right. I mean, he's not somebody we're going to invest in, and that's okay.
You're right.
But for this season, I'm fine with him being a seventh defenseman.
Exactly. And this piggybacks into our next question from Shane Moon. What are they going to do with Robert Haig?
Make him the seventh defenseman, and then let him go in free agency, unless, for some reason, he shows more.
Yeah, and they've got expiring contracts on the blue line next year with Niskanen. Right. Braun has 2 more years, if I'm not mistaken.
No, Braun has 1.
That's
Niskanen
right.
has 2.
That's right. So Braun will be gone. So maybe Haig sticks around on a cheap contract. There's worse things to worry about.
Right, but they're not going to trade this guy because there's no market for him.
Absolutely. That leads us to our next question from Jenna the Flyers fan, who asks, who will be the first Flyer to score this season? Yes, including Konechny and Provorov.
Didn't Jenna already ask this question? Is she the same one that asked this question?
If she isn't the same one that asked this question, someone definitely did ask this before, and I'm going to reiterate what I said the first time. Which is whoever takes over the third line winger spot.
Mm-hmm.
Rupsaw, Farabee, Frost, Rack, whoever it may be, they're going to score that goal, and the Wells Fargo Center's roof is going to just blow off and probably land on the Prudential Center in New Jersey. Let's hope.
I'm going to say the same thing I think I said. Kevin Hayes.
Yeah, you said Kevin Hayes hat trick.
Yeah, Kevin Hayes hat trick, and then he's never going to score again.
Until December.
Right. Yep. I'm sticking with it.
Hey, ballsy, and I like it. We're going to move on to Bobby. Bobby, actually, this question I really liked.
This is an interesting one.
Yeah, he asks, for the Seattle draft purpose, is it smart to leave our top prospects down in the AHL for one more season rather than one maybe get 30 to 50 points, then get drafted if they're not protected? He also adds, I'm not sure how many players they can mark protected from the draft. I'm a bit familiar with this because I wrote a piece on it, not on it, but it included some facts about the expansion draft when I talked about Sanheim.
Yep.
You need, I believe it's 3 years of NHL pro experience, not NHL pro.
I'm looking at it right now.
Okay.
I pulled up the list. It says all first and second year NHL players and all unsigned draft choices will be exempt from selection and will not be counted toward protection limits.
Is it NHL or is it professional? Because the AHL counts.
It says NHL players.
Oh, so most of our young guys are going to be protected because it's happening next offseason.
2021. Yep.
So not next offseason, 2 off seasons from now.
Right.
We're going to have some trouble.
Well, I mean, I don't know, like, what does that consist of? Is it, like, how many games do you have to play?
I'm not familiar. I'd have to do some more research on it as well. But I was also under the... Yep.
I'm looking here. All right. So played at least, it says one defenseman. Hold on a second. I'm just going to read it.
Okay.
In addition, all NHL teams must meet the following minimum requirements regarding players exposed for the selection and the draft. One defenseman who is under contract in 2021-22 and played at least 40 NHL games the prior season, or played at least 70 NHL games the prior 2 seasons. That's the same thing for forwards. So they have to have at least 70 NHL games under their belt.
Which means they'll have to probably protect a guy like Phil Myers.
Yeah.
So that would leave somebody like Goss Despair probably unprotected.
Right. So his question has to do more with the prospects, like keeping them down, right?
Yeah, the prospects will be ineligible for that draft. If we're talking Farabee, Frost, Ratcliffe, they'll all be ineligible.
Will they though? Because
I'm pretty sure.
Say Frost or Farabee makes the team out of camp, right? This year.
Very true.
They play the full season. The next year they play the full season. That's over 70 games, and that's 2 years.
Then you protect them, and you leave a guy like Hayes. You can't leave Hayes because of his no movement clause or no trade clause. Van Riemsdyk or Voracek.
Right. So this guy's saying that, would you keep them in the AHL?
If it's tricky. If the Flyers are going to contend, and a guy like Farabee, Frost, Ratcliffe, et cetera, is going to contribute to that winning at the NHL level, you don't say, hey, we'd rather just keep him down so that we don't have to protect him. You play to win. You play to win the game, you know?
No, I mean, that's 100% right. I had a similar question a few weeks back on my mailbag, too. And I had said the same thing. You know, when it comes to this season, Fletcher's going to put the best team he has on the ice. And if that's one of the rookies, then that's what he's going to do. I mean, one of the prospects, and that's what he's going to do. And he's going to figure that out later.
Yeah, that's essentially 2 years away.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of time for a lot of things to develop. Anything could happen between now and then.
Right, but they're not going anywhere. They're going to be protected.
Yeah, and don't discount the fact that there could obviously be handshake agreements in place with whoever the GM would be. Ron Francis, I apologize. It is Ron Francis, not whoever it could be.
Right.
The Flyers and Chuck Fletcher could obviously offer up, a first-round pick to protect a guy like whoever would take the third line winger spot, Goss Despair, whoever they value more. Things like that could happen.
Right, for sure.
Yeah, say, hey, we're not going to protect this guy, but you can't take him. We'll give you a first-round pick. Take it.
Yep.
All right, so this next one comes from Robert.
Yep.
Can we, for the love of Benjamin Franklin, move Haig and get something back, please?
Robert has been wanting to move Haig for quite some time. I don't think you're getting anything back for him. I don't think there's anyone interested in Robert Haig.
No. There's nobody interested in Haig.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. The fixation on Haig, I get it because he's a polarizing guy because everybody hates him, but nothing's going to happen with him right now. So, moving on to Robert's next question and our final question. Which department do you think will improve the most with the 3 new coaches? You've got power play, penalty kill, 5-on-5 scoring, 5-on-5 defense, and goaltending.
This is tough.
I'm going penalty kill.
Yeah, I am too, just because it's the biggest problem.
Yeah, and an article I wrote a while back touched on Vigneault's first season with a new team and how the penalty kill on virtually every team he's taken over has improved drastically.
Mm-hmm.
He took a bottom half, if not one of the worst PKs in the league, and took them to first place the very next year. So I have faith that if not Vigneault, whoever's going to be running the penalty kill, it's going to be better, which it can't get much worse, let's be honest.
Right. I mean, it's just going to be a big area of focus, too.
Yeah, and it should be.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and if I were to put one under that, it would be defense 5v5.
Yes, I think defense will dramatically improve because of the knowledge that they have on the blue line now with a guy like Niskanen and even Braun.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, folks,
Great.
that's it. That is it for us at the Pod Street Bullies.
That's all she wrote.
Yes, so John, please let everybody know at home where they can find you.
You can find me on Twitter at John P. Gove. You can find my articles at Philly Sports Network. I'm actually going to start putting out some prospect preview pieces where I'm going to kind of focus in on I don't even know what you would call it, Derek, like a section at a time. We'll do the NCAA and the juniors and the European leagues and stuff. So, look out for those.
And you can find me on Twitter at PuckBobPSN. I write for Philadelphia Sports Network, covering mainly the Phantoms, which will be more evident here shortly once we are settled at the new house. And we're going to send you off, letting you know that you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, YouTube, everywhere. Just look for us. You'll find us. Folks, that is it. You have a wonderful week ahead. And as always, let's go Flyers.
Bye now.